could change the face of India definitely from what he's achieved, and it's an absolute honor, and it's also a special moment for me as an anchor, because we've done a lot of introductions, and in my 8 years, this is one introduction which really intrigued me, which really inspired me, and which definitely gave me goosebumps. So ladies and gentlemen, up next is going to be a topic on blockchain, a privacy-centered standard for corporate compliance, and we have none other than Aman Ladia, who's a blockchain architect and an independent cybersecurity researcher. So Aman, you might not be too familiar with more introduction, but I'll just take a minute for introducing you. So well, Aman is an inventor and entrepreneur with a keen interest in blockchain and cybersecurity. He's worked as a programmer to help educational institutes and SMEs improve their efficiency and security using blockchain fundamentals. He also writes some popular blockchain blogs, and his catalog of products include AI-enabled power-saving home automation device and a wearable safety jacket for bikers, which both have received awards from the Department of Industry, Innovation and Science. Aman, as a solo competitor aged 14, beat out larger, better funded and more experienced team. Having also won the international level cyber and mathematic competitions, Aman has dived into cryptography. Aman currently is just 15 years old, so ladies and gentlemen, a huge, huge round of applause for the young mind who truly makes a lot of difference.
Thank you so much for that generous introduction. Let's get started. So good evening, everyone. Before I start, let me ask you all a question. How many of you all seated here value your privacy? Can I have a show of hands, please? How many of you all think your privacy is important? Wow, large proportion. Now, how many of you seated here use Facebook, LinkedIn, social media, any sort of social networking? Can I have a raise of hands? Again, everyone. Now, isn't that ironic? Let me give a small demonstration. This, my friends, this egg, this is what you think your privacy looks like. Safe, secured, protected by a shell, unbreakable. But that's how it should be in an ideal world. The internet's not an ideal place. Let's make this a bit more realistic. This is what your privacy truly looks like in the world of the internet. A garbled mess. And this topic has been taken up by activists over the past 2 or 3 years, and I'm sure we all would be aware of movements citing that privacy should be a fundamental right. People have put pressure on governments to come up with change, to come up with legislation that protects privacy. And in light of that, just 2 weeks ago, we had the European Union enact the GDPR, a tough stance on privacy. We also had the Supreme Court of India declare the right to privacy a fundamental right at par with the right to life or the right to equality just about a year ago. Now, while this is all well and good for us consumers, someone's taking care of our privacy, it isn't such good news for corporates. After all, the corporates are the ones who need to comply with these regulations. And considering how stringent they are becoming, it's becoming increasingly hard to comply with them without changing the way we work completely. Here's where I propose blockchain as a potential solution, a solution that allows corporates to comply with privacy regulations while ensuring that their workflow is disturbed to the minimum. So when we talk about cybersecurity and data storage, I think the first thing that will come to many of our minds would be databases. Databases have been around since the late 1970s, and for the last 30 odd years, we've been using databases to store all our data. The data of millions of users. Unfortunately, I like to think that databases are just dumb. Plain dumb. Why do I call them dumb? Well, because they can only store information. They can't think. They're just boxes where you keep information stored. You can read it from there, you can change it, you can write more, but they can't think. When I talk about blockchain, I like to think of database 2.0, a smarter database. Blockchains are databases that can think, and throughout this talk, we'll be exploring how blockchains can be applied to real-life scenarios. So why do I call blockchain smart? There are three main reasons why. First of all is immutability. For all of those out here who know about accountability, you would know that the first and foremost thing to remember is whether something, some action that I've committed, whether that can be erased, whether that can be altered in any form, so that there are no records left. Well, that's what current solutions offer, but databases are immutable. They offer accountability, because any change to a blockchain is recorded, cannot be changed. Think about building a chain using links. You remove one metal link and the whole chain collapses. Next we have distributed. So usually, I think the other speakers today have covered, most data is stored on one or a few select servers, and this makes them vulnerable to data theft. With blockchain, we can split our data across nodes. We can have each node keep a copy of the blockchain, so that in case, even if a hacker manages to gain control of one or two nodes, if we have thousands or millions of nodes running, they would need to gain control of an insurmountable amount of computers to make any practical difference. Before I go ahead with the rest of my talk, I'd like to break the notion of blockchains being equal to cryptocurrencies. Because every time I go ahead and I talk to somebody about blockchain, they always tell me, you must be the Bitcoin guy. You must be the guy holding Ethereum. You must be the guy who made millions out of Bitcoin. To be honest, that's really not what blockchain is. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other cryptocurrencies were the first use case of blockchain. The starter. The main course is still left to be served. In fact, cryptocurrencies, I feel, aren't really where the future of blockchain lies. The future of blockchain lies in commercial applications that are completely different from cryptocurrencies. So, all of you, and in fact me, until maybe a year or two ago, I always thought of blockchain as cryptocurrencies. But if you look at the chart here, you can see that the Bitcoin and Ethereum chain are one of many different types of blockchains. And in this tutorial, my talk, I'm going to be focusing on the other types that often go unnoticed. Right. So, when I talk about blockchains being smart, one of the most important factors, one of the most important things that makes them smart are called smart contracts. What are smart contracts? It's just a jargon for a program that runs on the blockchain. A program that controls movement on the blockchain. A program that does something when certain conditions are met. What this means is, for example, I've given two examples out here. We can have information being transferred for a specific time duration. Information leasing for a specific time. We can verify the authenticity of information put up on the blockchain using smart contract. And these are just two of the millions of possibilities. Imagine blockchain like Java or C++. Sure, maybe the first program was a game of Pong that somebody built up, but that's not the only case. So many more left to be explored. So, with that in mind, let's take an example. Here I'm taking the example of healthcare, the blockchain approach to healthcare. So I've identified four parties here: the patient, the doctor, the pathology lab, and the chemist. Four parties. Let's see how each of these four parties will interact with each other using the blockchain while maintaining the privacy of the user. So let's say the patient goes to the doctor for a medical checkup. The doctor wants to know the patient's medical history. The patient's medical history from birth until that point in time is recorded on a blockchain. So the patient simply has to allow the doctor access to his private part of the blockchain for maybe 30 minutes for the duration of the meet, after which the doctor can't see the records again. The doctor prescribes a blood test. Alright, so the patient goes to the lab conducts the blood test, and the reports, they are digitally signed and sent back to the patient. And we can have smart contracts set up in such a way that even the lab can't access those reports once they've been sent away. Now, the patient transfers those reports to the doctor for a limited time duration, after which the doctor gives a prescription, some medication. One of the major problems that occur, especially in India today, is we have paper prescriptions. Most vendors don't ask for a prescription. And even when they do ask for a prescription, how hard is it to make a fake letterhead and sign on it? But with the blockchain, where everything is verified, where the chemist can verify the authenticity of the doctor's prescription, none of that has to happen. The drugs are dispensed and the transaction is marked complete, so that the same prescription can't be used to get drugs again and again, which is often the reason for deaths or injuries due to overdose. So if you look at the bottom, you can see there are a couple of words I've written: timed, verified, encrypted, distributed. I've gone over these in the past. But there's one term out there, CKP. What does that stand for? Let's go over that. So the answer to this question is really what CKP is. Can transparency and privacy coexist? Can I have all my information on the blockchain, making it transparent, yet keeping it private? Those are two contradicting things. How do you do that? Well, there's something that's come into development in the recent days. It's called zero knowledge proofs, ZKPs. And it's been implemented in one Bitcoin alternative called Zcash. But let's see how this technology works. This technology allows me to share a secret with you, or to prove that I know a secret without revealing the actual secret to you. So I can prove that I know my password without telling you my password. Let's take a simplified example here. Let's consider two people, Bob and Tom. Now, Bob and Tom want to know whether they earn the same money, same amount of money. And they want to do so without explicitly asking each other, hey, Tom, how much do you earn? I earn $20. That wouldn't be acceptable in society. How do we get over this problem? For the sake of simplicity, let's consider that both of them earn either $10, $20, $30, or $40. So Bob goes to the market, he buys 4 boxes. Each of those 4 boxes have a lock on them, and each lock has a corresponding key. Each box also has a slit or a slot on top of the box. Now Bob earns $20, which is represented in the second picture out there. So he keeps the key for the box corresponding to the $20 box, and he throws the other 3 keys away. Bob leaves the room, Tom comes in. Now Tom has 4 chits of paper with him. On 3 of those chits, he writes no, and on 1 of them, he writes yes. He slips the yes chip, the yes slip, in the box corresponding to his salary, which in this case is $30. The other 3 boxes have the word no in them. He leaves the room, Bob comes back. Bob has only 1 key, the key to the $20 box. He opens it up and he sees the word no written on it. That means Bob and Tom don't earn the same money. Now, the secret that the 2 of them don't earn the same money has been revealed without either party revealing what they actually earn. This is obviously a simplified example, but I'm seeing applications of this in proving identity. I can prove I'm Aman Ladia without revealing I'm Aman Ladia. That's really where the future of ZKPs lie. Now, let's go on with the case study of a distributed system that's based on blockchain versus a more centralized one that's not based on blockchain. Here I'm considering Swift and Ripple. All of you here from the banking sector would be aware of Swift. It's used to transfer money internationally across borders. And some of you may also be aware of Ripple, which is the new competitor to Swift. Let's see how Swift works, which is the conventional, traditional system of banking. So Swift typically involves 4 banks: the sender's bank, the sender's correspondent bank, the receiver's correspondent bank, the receiver's bank. Now let's consider an example where I want to transfer money from SBI Mumbai to a bank in Mexico. So SBI Mumbai, I place a request in SBI Mumbai to transfer the funds. It makes contact with its correspondent bank in New York, let's say Wells Fargo, New York, which holds a Nostro account for SBI Mumbai. Now that bank, Wells Fargo, may contact Bank of America, which is the correspondent bank of the receiver. All this information exchange, this messaging, takes place through Swift. Then, money from the recipient's corresponding bank is transferred to the recipient's local bank in Mexico, and the recipient gets the funds. While this all sounds great on paper, the problem really occurs when you realize that at each step where your money flows, fees are deducted. So when I transfer money, I don't know how much my recipient is going to get at the end of the day. He may get less than what I thought he should get. Or I don't know how long it might take, depending on how these banks work. It can take 4 days, 5 days. And we've had cases where the transactions have never gone through, and then you need to go through the laborious process of tracking where the transaction is. So, summarized in 3 words: slow, inefficient, and expensive. Now let's take a look at Ripple, which is a more blockchain-focused solution. So here we have the sender's bank connected directly with the recipient's bank over Ripple. So what Ripple does is, just to give you a brief, each bank has its own internal system where it's called the ledger. That's where it keeps the settlement, how much funds are there in each person's bank account. So here Ripple connects the internal ledgers of the sender's local bank, so directly from SBI Mumbai, to the recipient's bank, the bank in Mexico. So this means we don't have to go through the corresponding banks. Rather, everything just goes directly from the sender's bank to the recipient's bank. What this means is this is much faster because you're skipping over the intermediaries. It's also cheaper because you have fewer people in the process. And since our talk is on privacy, it's also more private, since fewer banks or fewer parties are made aware of the transaction. Now, I'm not saying that Ripple is the solution to Swift. Swift has come up with technologies, similar blockchain-based technologies, to solve the problem that it currently faces. But clearly, on paper at least, decentralized technologies like Ripple are giving a big competition to the centralized, so-called secure ones like Swift. I don't want to go on this for too long, but if you have a look at this chain, this represents how an insurer could use blockchain. From everything from the incident, to the claim reports, the settlement, the actual credit of funds, everything can be reported on the blockchain. So this means that later down the line, 5 years down the line, if somebody has a lawsuit against you, you have the entire history of what action was taken when. And the fact that it cannot be tampered with means that it can be proven. You can prove your case in your favor. Now, I'd like to go on with IDs. This is specifically pertinent to Aadhaar. And if you look at the 3 reasons I've listed on stage, the fact that all of our data is kept in a centralized server, the fact that we have sensitive data that's stored there, and the fact that we have large volumes of data stored there, all that means is that it's a hacker's dream to come into that server. This means that they are ready to go to different lengths to get into that server, to get your private data. It's a hacker's honeypot. Let's see. Now, all of you corporates here may say that, well, that's a government problem. Why are you telling this to us? The government must sort it out. Well, that's right, it is the government's problem, but if you look at how Aadhaar works and how it's supposed to work, you'll quickly realize that the problem also lies with the corporates. You typically have a citizen like me going to an authentication user agency, an AUA like Vodafone or Airtel, who takes my KYC, who takes my biometrics. They send that data to an authentication service agency, which in turn communicates with UIDAI to get me verified, get me authenticated. I read this up on the Aadhaar website itself. It says, biometric and OTP data captured for the purposes of Aadhaar authentication should not be stored on any permanent storage or databases. Should. Our privacy lies on that one word, should. On the goodwill of an AUA to not store our data. But what if they do? That can be a problem for us. Here we can put smart contracts in use again. What we can do is we can have a validity. So if I share my biometric data with someone, or if I share my authentication data with someone, the blockchain can make sure that the access to that data is limited for a specific time duration. We can have accountability. So every time an AUA fetches data from the blockchain, that request can be logged on in another blockchain. So that means that if I suspect that my telecom company is making inappropriate use of my private data, I can always see the logs where my data has been retrieved by any private firm. We can also employ zero-knowledge proofs here, the technology that I talked about earlier with Bob and Tom. This means that I can prove that I'm Aman Ladia without giving you any information about myself. In fact, many companies are already working on putting biometrics on the blockchain in the hope that one day when I want to prove myself, I don't need to exchange data. I can prove it just using cryptographic methods. On the topic of validity, I think if you would have followed along from the start to this point in the presentation, you would have realized that any application that I spoke of today was not to do anything with cryptocurrencies, with Bitcoin, with Ethereum. It had to do with the underlying technology behind those concepts, smart contracts, zero knowledge proofs. These technologies are still in development, but so were so many things. I mean, the internet was in development 25 years ago. People were skeptical. They said it will never come to mainstream. It's insecure. It has problems. You may say that, as some speaker said today, you need to have a large, mammoth amount of power to power all these blockchains. But again, my friends, we are only looking at one certain type of blockchains. Blockchains that use proof of work. We have other types of blockchains. Blockchains that have faded away in the glory of Bitcoin and Ethereum. But this is where the future lies. In fact, if we were to continue on the example of Aadhaar, how about a distributed ledger? So instead of having all our records stolen, as it was the case last year, sometime around August, from a state government due to a simple SQL injection vulnerability, we can have our data distributed across several nodes. Possibly in this case, we could have each state running its own node. And hacking into 15 odd states, and the states not realizing that happening, is an ordeal for even the most experienced hacker. And this is where Aadhaar and blockchain could go hand in hand to ensure the privacy of the user, to ensure accountability, while making sure that the process is as transparent as it should be. So, on a closing note, blockchain today is as significant as the internet was 25 years ago. We've evolved, hackers have evolved, companies have evolved, transaction flows have evolved, but why are we still stuck on those same old databases? We talk about artificial intelligence, we talk about the world becoming smarter, but our databases have remained just as dumb as they were 30 years ago. So my friends, think about blockchain. Think about how you can make your databases smart with blockchain. Because the time's going to come, when blockchain is going to be everywhere, and you better get ready to do it right now, as soon as possible. That's what's going to ensure privacy, accountability, and transparency at the same time. Thank you.
Could we go for one question? One question? Yeah, okay. So we'll just get to the mic, please.
I'm Satyendra Naik. My question is that most of the softwares which government and all the bodies are using, the software companies which are developing. Now, blockchain is a concept which is, as you said, as it is a distributed ledger where the participants themselves are working. So, if a body has to develop a blockchain let's take just one example, then how is it possible that government or a body can develop that and have so many billions of participants in it? It's okay, bank to bank, 2 banks come, 3 banks, 4 banks, 10 banks, 15 banks, they have a network and they have a distributed ledger, all of them participate. It's difficult to program, so that is the major. So what do you think?
So I talked about Ripple today. Now Ripple's done something very interesting. I understand Bitcoin may have 11,000 odd nodes, but how can the government run 20,000 nodes? That's not possible. Well, let's take a look at Ripple. What Ripple did is pretty interesting. You know, we have IITs in India, havens of knowledge, of technology, places where future innovators are born. Those same IITs in the US would be something like Stanford, MIT, Caltech. These institutes are running nodes for the blockchain of Ripples. So, educational institutes, as an example, we are node. We have states in India. Each state has many government departments. Now, I'm not saying you need to have 10,000 nodes to run a blockchain. That shouldn't be the case either. We just need maybe 20 or 30 nodes. Imagine each state government or the best engineering college in each state running a node. That would be a question.
Sure. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, come on, let's give a huge, huge round of applause. And may I request everyone from our company to kindly join us on stage. And all our lovely people out there, I know we can do much better. Let's support, let's give more energy to this young mind. Thank you so much. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to now move on to our next panel discussion, which is going to be on cyber threat intelligence, the power of sharing. And this is going to be our last panel discussion. We've had one